What if the bravest thing a leader could do is not push harder, but pause? In today's episode, I'm sitting down with the executive coach, Martina Buchal, and her former client and my colleague, Susanne De Schepper, to talk about what executive coaching actually is, why asking for help is so hard for high-achieving women, and how intentional connection is nothing like networking. Plus, we're previewing a very special walk and talk experience at FIBO Women's Leadership Summit on April 17th. Stay with us. This one's going to move you. Let's connect the dots. Welcome to this week's episode of Connecting the Dots. This one is going to be so much fun because I'm joined by two dear friends and colleagues, Susanne De Schepper and Martina Buchal. And we are going to connect a lot of dots today. We're going to talk about executive coaching, what it is and what it isn't. Martina is an executive coach and Susanne was her client. So we're going to get client and coach perspective. We're going to talk about intentional connection and how that differs from networking. And we're going to talk to you a little bit more about what you can expect from the guided connection walk that Martina is hosting at the FIBO Women's Leadership Summit coming up on April 17th. So without further ado, welcome Martina, welcome Susanne.
Thank you.
And Martina, can you connect the dots for us from where you are, where you started in your career to where you are today and what brought you into executive coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. This is very exciting, and it's extra special that I have Susanne actually here with me today as a former coaching client of mine. To give you the background, and my story is long and it's complex, and we don't have 5 hours, so I'm going to cut it very short and make those dots mega connected for you. I was a kid who was very enthusiastic and very passionate about human rights. I grew up surrounded by inequalities. I saw it firsthand. I felt it firsthand. And at a very young age, I decided I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, to change public policy for the better, to get into politics and to make the world a better place. So going from that, I was lucky. I was a smart kid. I studied hard. I moved to Ottawa, Canada, the capital. And I started very quickly, not just studying law and human rights, but also working in very high levels of power in the political world, in the legal sphere. So I worked at the Senate of Canada. I worked for the Canadian legal system. I worked in the diplomatic sector. I was bumping shoulders with diplomats, with judges, senior officials, CEOs, people who really were, they're shaping society, shaping our systems, shaping the world that we live in, whether through organizations or the legal structure or politics. And I was young and I was excited and I thought, these are the people I really want to be. And I was very quickly very disillusioned. What I saw up there, I don't want to give the wrong idea. Many people who are in positions of power are coming from the absolute best place, right? These are public servants. These are people who are service-oriented, often caretaking-oriented. And yet, the higher up I got in these spaces, the more I saw how much leadership gone unchecked or unquestioned can become something that we're not conscious that we're creating.
It's the abuse of power, really, right? Like and we see it playing out right now.
There is abuse of power. There are some people who absolutely do not belong in positions of power. They are there for all the wrong reasons. They are there because they want power, because they want control. Those are typically the people that are the hardest to help, unfortunately, because they're the ones who often don't see that there is a problem. The people that I more often witnessed were the people who were unconsciously operating in these systems in only the way that they knew how. If you're a politician, more likely than not, you're a lawyer who went through law school where you learned how to fight. Right? The whole premise of law is conflict. It's right and wrong. It's black and white. So you go in and you're ready for a fight. The person opposed to me on the other side of me is wrong and I'm right. And I know I need to prove it. And what I saw, especially in sort of call it Senate sessions or in the courtroom, were big problems that were affecting a lot of people that needed a solution. But the people who were there to solve them were more focused on the way that they had to do things. I need to fight, I need to combat, and being right. Then they were focused on the actual problems and the people that they were there to help, right? They were out of touch with actually service and what they were meant to be doing. And for me, that was really startling. It was
Mm.
even more startling to realize how automatic this was. Many of these leaders were just operating on autopilot. This was all that they knew. I know how to go into a courtroom and I know how to battle. I know how to go into a boardroom and prove my point, right? I know how to pitch, but there was never a moment where somebody questioned, is this the right way to do things? Is there a better way to do things? And hang on, what would happen if I came into a space where there are other people who I'm supposed to be fighting against, but I saw them as collaborators, as humans, as people who possess valuable information, and I could have a conversation with them. So I honestly, I burnt out. I left the government. I left politics. It was too much for my tender little soft soul. And I started searching for solutions. I started looking at what leadership could potentially look like if it was intentionally designed. Around that point, I was really lucky. I was part of an international organization of young leaders. And as I was exploring, different methodologies of how we could be working together, how we could be leading, looking at negotiation. What does that look like? Better communication skills, peace building, coming together, collaboration, all of these big topics that I got certifications on, even coaching in there. As I was doing that, I got an opportunity to be global ambassador for this massive organization. Thousands of young people all over the world that were making the world a better place. They chose me as their one global ambassador. And I got to do a world tour, meeting hundreds of young people that
So
were
cool.
doing leadership differently. They were out there changing their communities. They were out there leading with passion, with care, being in touch with their values and what they cared about. And yeah, sometimes it was, we were all young. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were figuring it out as we went along, but it was coming from the right place and it was moving people and it was moving the dial. I took their voices to places like the United Nations, the Summit of the Americas, and I started talking to global leaders about what it could look like to do leadership differently. And I said, hey, look at young people. They're obviously doing something right. They
Mhm.
had taken and done something that I think a lot of senior leaders have not done and do not do. And partly because there maybe isn't time, partly because maybe there isn't a want because it's scary. But these young people actually took a pause to get to know themselves and what they care about and led from that place. After learning all of this, finishing my world tour, I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to be focusing on in my life's work. I need to be working with leaders. I need to be helping to make a positive ripple in the world. And I'm realizing that that starts within. It starts with
Mhm.
self-awareness. It starts with knowing yourself. If you're going to be a good leader, you've got to know you and the impact that you're making in the world. It all starts there. So that's what I
And
do now.
that Yeah, I mean, but the power of pause, I think, is such a red string, at least from what I know about you, like to really go in before you go out. And you see and we were talking about this before we even started recording, the speed at which the world operates is dizzying.
Oh,
And it's impossible to orient yourself at speed. At speed, you make quick decisions and keep going. But you're not thinking about the roadmap. You're not thinking about the destination. You're just in go.
yeah.
Hopefully that destination has already been identified at some point previously, but maybe not. That's the really scary thing. Okay. And I love listening to your story because I think that global leadership experience that you had must have just been like paradigm shattering, the opportunity to travel the world and talk to the world's leaders and upcoming leaders about leadership. I don't know anyone else who has had an opportunity anywhere close to that. That's so phenomenal. And from there, you built your coaching practice. So executive coaching is like one of those very um, broad terms. And I'm sure many people would define it differently, but
Mhm.
what is executive coaching to you?
I'm really, really glad that you started with the confusion because I can tell you that the confusion is usually where I meet people. I feel like there's a question actually beneath the question that you're asking that I need to answer in order to tell you what executive coaching is.
Do it.
And the question is, what is coaching?
Yep.
Because it's so easy to think. I think a lot of people think they understand what coaching is. And in actuality, it's not what it is at all. It's often mistaken for two other things that are close but not the same. Okay. So, three modalities that I think are important to understand are therapy, mentorship, and coaching. Three different things, all not the same. Therapy, I'm going to completely like put this in broad strokes. Okay.
Mhm.
Therapy, generally speaking, and a therapist will correct me. is looking into the past and your history and how it's gotten you to where you are today and where it might be slowing you down. We're talking about healing. We're talking sometimes about trauma. We're looking in the past. We're digging deep. Okay. That is an experience that's created by a professional, usually a medical doctor, somebody who's gone through years and years of study to be able to help you with that level of intensity from your past. Mentorship, different thing, not necessarily requiring a certification. A mentor is someone who simply has been where it is that you wish to go. So if I want to be the CEO of, a fitness multinational, I want to find a mentor who is the CEO of a fitness multinational. And what a mentor will do is a mentor can tell you, this is the road I took. Here's the road you can take to get to exactly where I am. So it's follow my path. You can take the same path with me, essentially. So they're giving you a roadmap, essentially, to help you get to where you want to go. A coach and coaching is different. Ideally, you're working with a certified professional, okay? Normally, want to find somebody who's got a certification and years of practice. So it is not like a mentor and not like a psychologist. There are degrees. You want to find people who have those, ideally, because the coaching industry, importantly, is not regulated. So you've got to be the decisive one who's looking for the right people, ideally with recommendations and references. This person, what a coach does is a coach takes a coachee from where they are today to where it is that they want to go. We do that through self-assessment, self-awareness, and understanding the self. Will we touch things from the past? Sometimes. Sometimes our trauma and things that happened in our past will lead us to where we are at the present and stop us from getting to where we want to go in the future. But our job is not to delve into that. That is a psychologist, psychiatrist's bag, right? We are working on, okay, if you are where you are today and you know yourself today, how do you get to where it is that you want to go tomorrow? We're looking for obstacles. We're looking for opportunities. We're looking for skills building. What do you need to do? What do you need to have in your tool belt to get there from point A to point B? The coach is a support. The coach is a cheerleader. The coach is sometimes a teacher, a recommender. A recommender, is that a word? Okay, I can use a recommender of resources.
We just made it one.
Yeah, there you go. Somebody who recommends resources for you to basically make that path for you as easy as possible and as supported as possible. I call myself a cheerleader. I think it's really important to cheer on my coaching clients. There's also a piece of it that's about accountability and making sure that the promises that you make to yourself are being kept, because sometimes the hardest thing is saying you want something and actually going and doing it without accountability. So that's another part of coaching. Executive coaching then is coaching, but for, as you guessed it, executives, typically speaking. I prefer to call it leadership coaching because not everyone calls himself an executive. Executive is, I think, more strictly in the private sector, I would say, but I'm working with senior leaders across sectors, so private, public, not-for-profit. And I'm also working for high responsibility people. So leader, capital L, as a title is one thing. There are also people who would not call themselves a leader who are in leadership positions. Entrepreneurs are a good example of that. Solopreneurs are a good example of that. Multi-hatted people, so I'm talking mom who's an entrepreneur, are a great example of that. People who are carrying high responsibility are often high visibility. Those are the people that executive coaching and my executive coaching touches and works with.
I'm gonna paraphrase. Like a therapist is a therapist helps me with my programming and understanding where that programming language came from, so that I can decide to rewrite it in the future. I go back to that origin and maybe I rewrite it in a new language. A mentor is like, the person that's taking me through the mountains because they've been on that pathway before and they know all the friendly goats.
I love that analogy. Yeah, the friendly goats, of course. Yes.
And the coach is the person who teaches me how to use new tools and skills to keep going on my road, and also probably helps me define and articulate where the milestones are, because I think we talk about goals. It's like I have a goal and then I've hit the goal, and it's like, but this is very dynamic. You have many goals and you're constantly resetting them, which is why having a coach on a longer term basis is super useful, because it's that process of articulation, understanding what I need to do to get there, and having support getting there.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, actually, a good coach is always going to point you to your compass, not to a map. You are the compass. Your values, who you are as a person, your motivations, That's where the goals come from. It's really, really important that you're being self-resourced on the path, that you're deciding for yourself at each step of the way, is this still the right way? Is this still what feels right for me? How does this feel within me? And a good coach is going to ask you along the way, is this still where you want to be? How do you feel about your performance or how you're achieving things? Because what can happen is sometimes when we set a goal, we're setting it from the older version of ourselves who thought that goal was the best idea in the world, and it came from the best intentions. I thought I wanted to be a human rights lawyer. I found out later down the path by getting in touch with myself that actually, or being in the right environments too, actually, this isn't the right thing for me. If I had a coach by my side, they would have asked me that question, Martina, how does this feel for you?
Yeah.
Because you're telling me you're exhausted, you're tired, you feel out of touch with yourself, you don't love some of the things that are happening at work. I would have probably caught on earlier that I was in the wrong place, that I set the wrong goal. Well, not the wrong goal. I set the right goal at the time before I had the information that I have today. And now that I know in the present moment that this doesn't feel right for me, I can choose a different one. A coach will be there to ask you, is this still the right goal for you? Do we need a shift? And they'll be there to support it for you, whatever that shift is. And you might be surprised sometimes to find out what you actually encounter on the way when you think you're heading towards a specific goal and actually you bump into yourself along the way and realize this is feeling a little bit different than I thought it might.
And I think like when you're talking about outcome goals and like I want to become a human rights lawyer, that's a really big outcome goal with a lot of requirements.
I was very ambitious as a
Yeah,
7-year-old.
good for you. And like that's awesome. But the thing is, because we treat it, or historically, I think we've been programmed to treat it as like an absolute commitment rather than like I'm trying on an outfit. I'm trying on this outfit of becoming a human rights lawyer, and maybe it looks good on me right now, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe I need to try on another outfit. And I think that's like, I mean, Susan and I went to a styling coach at one point because we got a wardrobe overhaul, and it really was that. It's like she took our profile, we got our colors done, our body type done, and then she pulled clothes for us, and we tried them on. And I think really this is like a perfect analogy for these outcome goals. It's like, is this me? Is this me now? Because sometimes you donate clothes, and often you get new outfits. So I think that's just, and that's why it's so helpful to have someone who can continually help you orient yourself back to your home base, your compass, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Because that is constantly changing, which is why I think it's it can be so confusing for people.
Yeah,
So
life's
the
dynamic.
beautiful thing about my next question is we can get two answers for it. Because Susanne, and this is actually how I knew you before I knew you, Martina, is I knew you through Susanne because she was your client for many years. So I'd like to ask you both the next question, which is, what does it look like to work with you in practice, Martina, like from the coach's perspective and then from the client's perspective?
You want me to go first, or shall we start with Sue? I'm actually very interested to hear her answer.
Let's do opposite day. Let's start with client. Yeah, good idea.
Start with client. Thank you. So to go back, what led me to coaching and being coached by Martina was a moment in my career where from the outside, everything was looking just perfectly well. Everything's going well. Juggling loads of stuff and telling everybody, doing great. I was leading a large organization, but in France, we were scaling super fast. And it felt like I was always pushing harder instead of, pausing and taking the time to look, okay, what does that path look like and where do I want to be and how do I get there? I think for me, it was about trying to create more clarity for myself. And with that also for the team that I work with, of course. And I'm a very big operational person, operational background, always making decisions, solving things quickly, next. And I realized that always having the answer is limiting to yourself and to the team that's working you. I had a big team of people that counted on me, and I felt that I was pushing, but not giving the space, neither to them or with that to myself, to get the clarity that I needed to move forward. And it was the time that I said, okay, I need help. I need support. We're not a one women show, luckily. And I have a great support team. I already had amazing colleagues. I have an amazing husband and friends and family. But that specific support of a coach that is there to cheerlead, but especially to ask the challenging questions, to make time to reflect and poke and ask again, are you sure this is where you want to be? It's about getting more self-awareness time on your own agenda. It's understanding yourself and understanding that what the impact is not doing more, pushing more, but it's taking the time to understand how you want to lead intentionally. I had a great book example that Martina shared with me, and I'm rereading it again because coaching doesn't stop.
Can't
Luckily,
get rid of me that fast,
my
Susanne.
framework is to go back to still all the time, because it comes back at that pushing harder as a solution, which isn't. A great book that Martina recommended me that's called Rest, and it is about taking that time to rest, to get out of the business, to make you move forward later on. And Martina has been a great coach, and I remember that we came at the moment where I think we worked together about a year and a half. And then we both felt, and I think that's one element of coaching that's very interesting as well, that I had the tools to go and do it on my own. And have it's not a framework, but yeah, it's the tools to move. And if the moment comes back that you're like, okay, again, I'm pushing myself, I think I can do it all. And as women, we have so much to do. And then I grab back to those discussions and those notes and those tools that she gave me to go back to that self-awareness, self-esteem, and make the rest move forward later on. It's hard work. I just want to mention that as well. It's hard work.
I wanted to ask you, like, what was the hardest thing, or if you can remember, one of the hard things she asked you to do that you were just like, oh, damn.
Pause and don't solve everything with the right part of my brain. Like I said, I come from very operational backgrounds. I have a lot of hats. I'm a mom. I was a leader in a scaling business with loads of responsibility, loads of people. I was me. I was a wife. I was so many things, and I solved all of the questions that came at me with that right side of the brain, a solution, etc. I was really bad at listening to what my left side was telling me, what my heart was telling me, what my emotions were telling me. It was, for me, as of a person that's very rational, it was very challenging, that part. She luckily kept pushing softly, but she kept pushing.
I think it's important to say I am not a drill sergeant, and most coaches aren't. We're not going to sit there and scream at you, but I think it is really, really important, and I hope I did this well with you, to be persistent as a coach and to be a good mirror for that person in front of you, to mirror back their experiences and what's happening for them, and also to get to know your clients well enough that you can call them out on their own stuff eventually. The first part of coaching is really getting to know my clients deeply, and building a lot of trust so that they can feel safe to open up all of these big, scary spaces. For a lot of my clients, I'll say that, these are leaders, high-performing people who rarely have a moment to stop and are often too scared to get vulnerable enough to say that there's something under their surface beyond the performance that they have to keep up every day at work. But underneath every single mask of professionalism, and we all wear these masks to different degrees, right? But under every single one of these masks is a person who is real and vulnerable and sometimes scared and sometimes worried and sometimes unsure. And no matter the persona you're seeing in front of you, there is softness behind it, and there's a whole person behind it. And this is one thing, and I'm not disclosing anything counter to the confidentiality agreement here with Susanne because she just said it. But there is a really important part of exploring the totality of the person in front of me as a coach. Not just the intellect, not just the performance, but actually, who are you really? What do you care about? What drives you? What is incredibly difficult for you that you would never say out loud to another person? I don't know how many times it's happened in a coaching space where somebody can, for the first time, say something that they have been terrified to say out loud because they know the repercussions that could come from them saying it out loud. Can you imagine being the leader of an organization and going in front of your employees and saying, I feel like a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, right? That does not instill confidence in your following. Right? But a lot of people feel that way. And it's an important thing to acknowledge while we're trying to get to where we want to go. There are very, very few spaces for leaders to actually, take the time, like truly take the time to just be with themselves and really, without all the hats, put the hats down, put the armor down, and just be Susanne, just be Jen, just be Martina, right? there aren't enough spaces for that. There aren't enough spaces for the self-awareness and to explore actually impact that we are making and the impact we want to make because we're too busy. We're too busy going and we're pursuing, we're in the very, very busy flow of things. I feel like there's a question on your face.
Oh no, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a reflection. I think like you call like the professionalism piece, like and the performance drive
Mm.
mask. I think because I've like bathed in Brene Brown. I'd call it armor.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what's really interesting to me, and just kind of from a lot of my conversations with different women over time and my own experience, is that you were talking about looking at yourself your whole life. And
Mm.
this is something that Susan and I talk about as well quite a bit. It's like I love the positive psychology life wheel because it gives you perspective on all of these different pieces of your pie of life.
Mm.
And I find that the professional piece, as programmed by society, is like takes up 99% of the pie for many of us. And it
Yep.
doesn't give any space or oxygen or light or water for those other pieces to
Mhm.
grow and bloom. And there was a moment in my career where I stepped away. Like Susan and I worked together at Basic Fit, and I stepped away, and it wasn't 100% my decision to step away from that role. And it was like this hard punctuation for me in
Mm.
my life. And it was so painful at the time, but it was so good looking back on it because I
Mhm.
realized how much I had invested my identity. I had allowed my identity to be consumed by the
Yeah.
professional piece of the pie, and I had not nurtured any of the other pieces.
Yep.
And now that I am in a position where I do feel like I nurture other pieces, I feel like I'm a better professional. Like it's so, and I know that this is from having strong women in my life. And I've also spent at least a decade in therapy and 3 years in coaching. There's not a
Good
time
for
in my
you.
life where I don't have a coach. I always invest in this service. So, like, what do you think is holding back from more women from investing in a coach? Because I feel like we are the exception, not the rule.
You think that most people don't have a coach is what you're saying, yes? I tend to agree that I think it can be really difficult for some women to justify getting a coach for themselves. I think for many women, it feels selfish. It feels indulgent, self-indulgent. It feels like too much, especially for women in these positions of responsibility. We're so used to giving. That's our safe place. We're giving. That's what we derive our value from, right? We give, we take care of, we assert, we lead. We're constantly giving away our energy. To give something back to us can feel really, really unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
But
Suzanne. Yeah.
I think we as women are used to or should be seen as strong, always delivering. For mainly for others, like you mentioned as well, Martina. It's for the families. It's for the organizations we work for. It's often for others, especially I. I felt that very strong. And it was one of the reasons that I seeked the support and started coaching with you. It's luckily I didn't wait until I need it,
Yeah. So there was a
and I think it's
problem.
often that we wait, we tell it's not needed, and we start doing it when it becomes really difficult, but it's
Mhm.
actually too late. Coaching is not something that you should do when things go wrong, when it has exploded. Something that helps you grow to manage that all the challenges that come at you. So for me, it was really about giving myself permission to invest in me, in my time, in myself. We have this level of commitment that we give to others, but we don't give to ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's that moment that you commit to giving those same commitments to yourself and to your own development that you give to others.
And if you
Mhm.
had it to do over again, would you have done it earlier?
Yes,
How
yeah.
much earlier?
A few years earlier, I think. It's the juggle of the permission to yourself. It's from some sort of change in its investment, a financial, but also a time investment that you compare
Mhm.
to, okay, if I invested in myself, I cannot invest it in my kids or my family or whatever. So it's always serving the others first before working on yourself. And you realize really hard way if it's too late. So if you can avoid that by just investing in yourself, even the time earlier, and if you start feeling that you're always serving the others and there's nothing for yourself, then it's already too late. So if you start feeling some of those signs, start investing in yourself. You cannot help others. I have this paraphrase that's always still on a little card behind me here that says, it's not for nothing that they say on an airplane, please put on your own mask first before helping others. You cannot help others if you don't care, if you take care of yourself. We have to give ourselves permission to spend that time. And it's the most challenging decision to make, I think, as a woman, as a mom, as a leader, because it's going, especially as myself, as a serving leader, it's taking a decision for yourself before you take a decision for others or do something for others. I don't know what it is, typically women, I think, where it comes from, but it's that decision making was the ease. And after that, the coaching was challenging. Don't get me wrong. And it's not because of Martina. Starting it was the most challenging, giving yourself permission to spend that time on yourself.
It's asking for help, right? So like Martina, like why do you think it's so hard? I hear two things in that. I hear asking for help and I think my value. Am I worth it to invest in myself? So like in your experience and in your opinion, why is this so hard for women?
We are not taught to ask for help at any stage in our lives. I think a lot of the conditioning that we receive, and I'm going to speak about, our part of the world, because obviously every culture is different, our parts of the world, but I don't know anyone who's gone through school and was taught in a classroom how to ask for help, how to receive. And I think especially as women, as young girls, we're often taught to be sociable, to be likable. And how do you do that? You do for others. You express generosity, you express kindness, but it's not the same as receiving. Receiving is something that we're not typically taught to do. It is counterintuitive to just get something from someone, and then worse, having to ask for that. Oh my gosh, that could make most people jump out of their skin. I think that sounds very, very scary. I think what's great about coaching is if you make that leap to the point where you actually are in front of a coach, then you have a playground to test and practice asking for help consistently. And that makes you better at it in real life outside of the coaching space. It's so important for women to ask for help, to collaborate, to work together, to lift each other up. I can tell you, I'm lucky. I've done this very consciously, though. I'm lucky to have a community of women around me and this happened a few weeks ago, Susanne. I gave her a call because I had a specific business problem. I was facing a conflict. And, I could pick up the phone and I could ask her for help and guidance. And I didn't feel bad about doing that. There was no part of me that held back. I immediately thought, I have to call Susanne. She's the perfect person to talk to about this. And sure enough, she was happy to talk, for a few minutes on the phone with me and walk me through this and what she would do. I wish more women did this. I wish more leaders did this, honestly. To not do things in isolation, because to be honest, in isolation, all we have are the tools we have and have up until that date. We are limited. When we extend, when we ask for help, when we open up to coaching, when we open up to all of these different things, all of a sudden we're multi-resourced. We have access to resources and tools that we'd never had access to before or even knew existed. We don't know what we don't know. And the only way that we can find out what we don't know is to discuss with another person who's on the outside looking in, who can say like, hey, I'm looking at you here. Do you know about this book that would really help you with this problem? Or have you spoken to my colleague about A, B, and C? That's when things really jump forward. And also while they jump forward and things are getting easier, life is getting better for my clients, right? Because all of a sudden you're not carrying everything on your shoulders alone or feeling like a total failure in isolation because you can't solve this by yourself, right?
Everything's bigger when you're holding it alone, right? And if you can spread it out. And I think it's funny. You just gave a beautiful example of asking for and receiving help with someone in your community that you feel very safe with. So like those are the ingredients for taking that step. And I also think it's funny because and maybe listen for it when you talk to people. People love to help other people. I don't know one person that doesn't want to be able to help others. So why is it such a barrier to ask for the help? Because you're going to give the helper the gift of allowing them to contribute, right? That if you reframe it a little bit and look at how many people who genuinely want to be able to contribute, that I think should maybe change perspective on receiving help a little bit more. Like, I've never heard of someone who doesn't want to help another person. Everybody wants to. I just don't think we get the chance as much as we could. And I think
sorry,
go ahead.
No,
No.
I think it also comes from, well, at least for me personally, shows I feel that I have to have all the answers, that I always have to have a solution. It's probably also the background and the multiple roles that come from that. So if you think that you personally should have all the answers, it's challenging to ask. It's challenging to ask help because you're first going to seek all your own your own answers or your own solutions, so to say, before you ask help. I think it's asking help for some sort of reason is showing so much vulnerability that we're just not used to do. It's opening up the part that you probably mask away for a big part of the life. What I did also learn from the period of coaching is that if you accept that you don't have to have all the answers and that you can ask for help, you also start learning to ask better questions. And with those better questions, that opens up the conversation and that opens up the support you get from other people. That also shows you then that's super valuable to get those other perspectives and to get those other inputs. That I think that drives you to dare to ask help the next time because it was so helpful at the time. So I think that was also a shift for me after the coaching is, okay, you don't have to have all the answers. Find support and ask the right questions or have to ask the right help, so to say. That opens up and then it shows, okay, this is cool. This person can really make me move forward. And that means also that you're slow, like, okay, if she makes me move forward, I can make people move forward as well, probably.
And just another shameless plug for diversity.
Yeah.
Like, the more diverse perspectives a solution or input a solution gets, the better the solution. Like that's proven.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like that programming is like, I have to have the answer. It has to come from me. It's like, no, this is like, build with community, build with a lot of hands. So let's talk about community a little bit more, because Martina, we're going to see you in less than 2 weeks and time is melting, and we just have
Gone fast.
podcast before we started recording. One of the things that I'm most excited about for the Women's Leadership Summit is intentional connection walk. And I think I'm calling it the wrong thing. So tell me what we're calling the walk.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen? Like, what will people get from it? What will they do? And why is that so important?
So I'm going to start by saying what it's not. It is not networking. Okay. We are not calling it networking. I have never in my entire career met somebody who enjoys networking. Do you like networking?
I know a couple of people who do, but I'm not like, I'm an ambivert, so not so much.
They like creating relationships, so that it's not the networking only. It's like
Yeah.
how we
For
see
me,
networking or what it really should be or is maybe
maybe different.
explanation.
Yeah. So for me, networking is kind of this contrived human exercise that we do where we put on our masks, we put on our performance, we get our pitches ready, we get our business cards ready, we find a person and we basically, splash that at them. It's like, here you go. Here's who I am. Here's what I want. Here's what I'm doing. Here's my card. It's very transactional. It is very, it comes from the head. There's a lot of strategy involved around it. But in my experience, unless you're a very good networker, some people are really good at working a room, understanding people, getting beneath the surface, having great conversations. I would say the majority of people are not that and do not have that experience of networking. Typically, it is the, here I'm so-and-so. Under the surface, you're probably very nervous about talking to a stranger because that feels very weird. All of a sudden approaching somebody you don't know and telling them all about you. So networking for me is something that is not necessarily useful, not necessarily natural, and it's definitely not superhuman and full of soul and meaningful connection. What we're doing, and we're not calling it networking, we're calling it a meaningful walk and talk in the morning of the Friday morning. We're connecting people in a container We're creating a space where the people in the room, well, actually not in the room, outdoors, are going to be speaking at a deeper level and actually getting to know someone. We're going to be completely bypassing the titles, the power dynamics, the awkward beginning, the pitches, the business card. In fact, I'm going to ask everybody to put their business cards away right at the beginning, because what I want is for everyone there to actually see and talk to the person in front of them. We're going to take them through an exercise where they're going to practice the icky, sticky thing that we just talked about, which is asking for help, getting a little bit vulnerable. But the great thing is we've got a walk to do it on. So we've got little distractions here and there. You're not in that vulnerable space where you're staring somebody in the eyes, and having to do the big performance. You can relax your shoulders. You can walk. You can talk to someone. You can talk a little bit about you. We've got some prompts, some questions to help people along the way if they're unsure what they want to be sharing or asking for. And the whole point of the exercise is just to practice asking for help and to practice generosity and listening. It's basically practicing human connection, right? Listening, talking, hearing, receiving, giving, the whole shebang. And hopefully by the time everybody walks out of there, they're going to be feeling like they actually connected to a few people, as opposed to have a pocket full of business cards. They can exchange the business cards after if they really must. But the point is to have that really human experience and hopefully get something that's meaningful when they walk away.
About connection,
And
not performance.
Exactly.
connection. Well, I mean, I've got some insights on the conversation prompts that you have, and they're really deep, and you do help people. You guide them through the process of showing up, listening, and holding space for others. And I think that's another skill that we all need, especially when we're in that networking mode. That's why I was like, what are we calling this talk? Because I want
Right.
everybody's
really
going to
get clear
tag
on that.
networking to this, but it's not. It's like
Yeah.
unnetworking. Like, let's come up with an Alice in Wonderland term
Yeah.
for it. But I'm so happy that you're going to facilitate that and help us, have a really new, meaningful connection. Because who doesn't need a new safe space, a new friends to call, a new support system in this day and age? And that's definitely what you'll walk away with at the end of that event. So I want to close the podcast with two things. I want to make sure, Martina, that people know how to get in touch with you and learn more about you. And I'll add all of your links in the chat. And Suze, I want you to give us a call to action for all of those people who are like on the bubble of investing in themselves in terms of your shoulda, woulda, coulda. And then
Love that.
hopefully, yeah, we'll hopefully see everyone at FIBO. So you first, Martina. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find you? How do they learn more?
Honestly, the best way to get in touch with me is if you're on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, Martina Buchal, Buchal. You can send me an email at hello at by Martina Catherine. Martina spelled the way you see it below, Catherine, CATHERINE.com. My website is currently down, which is very, very poor timing, but eventually it will be by martinacatherine.com. Honestly, meet me at FIBO. If you're there, come find me, reach out via LinkedIn, send me an email, let me know that you'd love, to have a moment of my time. As might be obvious from this podcast, I love connecting with people. It's something that I deeply care about. So do not hesitate to reach out. Even if it's a question that you think might be silly or something, I'm there for it. So by all means, all those ways are a great way to get a hold of me.
Thank you
so much forward. So thank you, Jen, for giving me the last part of this podcast. Just show up on that Friday morning. Just come as yourself. Come as who you are. Come intentionally to meet other people, to listen to other people, to take the time to reflect instead of to run, as FIBO is about running and about business and about performance and about networking that we're not doing. Show up to the walk, to the summit in general. Take that time for yourself. Don't wait. We're very good at waiting to take a decision for our own. Just stop waiting. Show up. Friday the 17th in the morning. We're there. We'll do it together. Walking and talking with Martina is super. It's really useful. It's really slowing you down. It's about taking that rest from performing and being there, meeting other beautiful people and getting other perspectives and thoughts, and just take that time off the busy agenda to do something for yourself. Don't wait until you feel ready. Growth happens when you make the decision to show up, and it will happen that morning as well.
Wonderful, sage advice. Thank you
Yes.
both so much. And we'll see everyone at the FIBO Women's Leadership Summit.
Thank you.
And thank you so, so much.
Thanks for listening to Connecting the Dots. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, share it with someone who'd enjoy it too. You can find all of our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you follow the show, leave a rating. It helps more people discover our work. Until next time, keep connecting the dots and keep building the future you want to see.